Dope is what flows in this fam's DNA. Dope is what flows in this fam's DNA.
What's good, everybody, and welcome to Dope Interviews, brought to you by the mighty 19 Media Group. I'm your host, Warren Shaw, and in the virtual building today, I have a very, very special guest. I have Jaime Gutierrez. He is the director of the Asylum, a documentary featuring about the historic Miami Senior High School of the late 80s and 90s. A little bit around my time as well, too, kind of. So it's a little bit personal to me, kind of understanding what he's doing here with this work. The Asylum is going to be one of the feature films at the 41st Miami Film Festival. Jaime, welcome to Dope Interviews, my brother. Nice to meet you.
No, thank you. Appreciate it, Warren. Thank you for having me, and thanks for, shining some light on the Asylum.
Listen, that thanks, you're not thanking me for anything, because again, you did the work, right? And I want to say congratulations to you, on a great project. And I'm sure you've been asked this before, but we got to start here at the beginning, as we always do in Dope Interviews. Tell me a little bit about what inspired you to tell this story in general.
Well, what inspired me was, obviously, I was born and raised in Miami. I played basketball during that time as well. So I actually got a chance, an opportunity to play basketball against one of those teams, that's part of the documentary. Yep. And just the inspiration came, mostly from, my background, which obviously is media, television, sports, and just telling a good story for Miami. That story had been, hadn't been told in the past 20, 25 years that had happened. Obviously, it was, some things that occurred during that time. And yeah, I wanted to shed light, I guess, on how the other side of the spectrum of what the players had to go through and what they became after, what went on at Miami Senior High, at the Asylum, as the basketball gym is called.
Jaime, what was it like, I guess, getting archival footage? So I've been talking to a lot of different filmmaker, documentary people, and so forth and so forth. And again, that seems to be like one of the hardest things, especially getting stuff from that time where it wasn't such a digital age. So yeah. What was that process like, gathering that footage? And did you find people actually had that stuff, were able to help you kind of put it together and doing all the editing and stuff like that?
Yeah. So I think two pieces to that question. One is, obviously when I thought of the idea, I'm like, all right, where am I going to get all this footage from? Because like you said, at that time, there's no social media, no Instagram, none of that. So I'm like, okay, there has to be something or some, kind of place where they house old footage, because obviously I've seen documentaries in the past, for years, and there's footage of stuff that occurred 30, 40 years ago or 20 years before the story's told. So, I had the opportunity to basically dig up some footage at the Miami-Dade archive. And that was excellent because it actually was, very well detailed, gave me like year by year what I was looking for. And then the second part of that is, going back to actual Miami High, and their, TV production teacher, Mark Baranek, who's actually, sorry, not Mark Baranek, one of the other individuals that's there at the TV production class, had old footage of those years. And I was like, oh, okay, wow. Like I had never seen somebody kind of, have so much old footage of like a high school. And I was able to digitize it. And that was, I think, the hardest part was, digitizing it because of the cost and stuff like that.
What was the most unexpected part, kind of digging through those archives, in terms of even the process or maybe even some of the film footage that you kind of came across?
Well, I think that's a good question. I mean, a lot of hidden gems of like, kind of, I guess at that time they would shoot like family type of, videos, like everything from a process of like getting out of the bus to being in the class to like,
right,
warming up and stuff like that. So I think it was shot more of a way of like, it was for the family, like if you have a family video from back in the day. So I think that was more of a like surprise. So I was able to get like a lot of behind the scenes that nowadays we kind of like do on a normal basis when we're doing some sort of production. We take photos, we take videos of whatever, but in that time, that really wasn't thought of, and actually it worked out very well. And I had amazing archival footage. And then I also had another individual who actually was a cameraman during that time, provide a couple of tapes. And in that tape, and one of the tapes that he had, it led to actually having Jim Valvano on one of the tapes at being at the gym of Miami High, the Asylum.
Yeah.
Which that when everybody looks at that, it's like, oh, they're like, oh my God, where'd you get that? And I was like, well, it was one guy that was a cameraman at that time.
Yo, that's tight. I mean, like real talk. And I think, when you're doing any type of projects like this, there's going to be those, as you alluded to, hidden gems that you kind of come across, if you will. Is there anything that you can share with us that, in essence, maybe didn't make the documentary or the film that maybe you wish you did, or was kind of like that behind the scenes look, if you will? Because it is, what you said is so true. We're very much in the age of like, the kind of the linear storytelling is it's I want to say that it's played out, but that's not all that there is anymore. People want to know, like, all right, what's it like in the locker room and those types of things. Now we have guys like the Celtics are pre-filming a documentary, if you will, of their behind the scenes run. If they don't win the championship, I mean, we'll see if that actually comes out. But everybody wants to know the making of that team and kind of what's going on. Is there anything that you found that was like, man, I just did not know that you wish that you could have added to the film specifically?
Oof, I mean, I think I pretty much was able to add almost everything I wanted,
That's dope.
Like I said, there was like a lot of like behind the scenes. So in the film, when you get to see it, there's actually a lot of locker room talk,
Yeah.
like speeches, from Shaky and from Frank, who are the two main head coaches of those runs. And again, like to your earlier question, like, man, I didn't think I was gonna get that. Like I was like, oh, I'm just gonna get a bunch of highlights, of the guys dunking, making 3-pointers, celebrating. But then, like I said, when I opened up that archival footage and actually had speeches of them talking, motivating the team, that I think to further add to a couple of questions you've asked, I think that helped me enhance the story because it actually helped me tell what I wanted to tell, which was these guys weren't just coaches. These guys were more like father figures. They were more like, teaching boys how to become men, and obviously the impact that it created, with their lives down the line, which obviously holds true now. And that's why, some of the biggest names from that time, like Udonis Haslem, Stephen Blake, Brett Wright, Sylvan Robinson, they hold dear, Bo Furby, they hold dear their coaches, to what they did and taught them during that time.
I mean, I think that's a great point, right? Like you can go into it with some semblance of an idea of like, I kind of wanted to go this way, but then the story kind of can change as a result, as you're uncovering things or as you're talking to people, doing interviews, and it's like, hey, you know what? This adds another level or a layer to this film and documentary. And I think that aspect, even stuff with Shaky, like at the awards banquets, and those types of things, and like it just added so much context, I think, to the overall story that was being told here in the Asylum. One thing about it, and I heard you mention it as well too, you're from the Miami area, and this documentary is very, very Miami. Right. Yeah. Like, and I think, and I applaud you for that. I think if you've grown up in the South Florida area, you can be like, damn, you can really see what was going on in that. But it also brought me to another aspect of, I've lived in the area for a very long time as well. And Miami's had some very dominant runs at various levels, right? From obviously to the LeBron Heat, but even before that, Wade and their championship, if you will, too. The Marlins have won. And then this Miami Senior High team, maybe not as prevalent for people's understanding of Miami in terms of its overall culture. But in Miami, it was a really, really huge and big deal. And there was a lot of hate. And that's what it says. Like I've seen people hate on the U. I've seen people hate on the Heat. And then watching your documentary, there was national hate for Miami Senior High. Talk to us a little bit about that cultural experience that Miami High had at that time and its impact on the South Florida region.
No, well, like you said, if you see the documentary, like at that time, the Heat had just started. The Miami Heat had just started, and they were filling their gym, their arena with more people than an actual NBA team.
Yeah.
And like you said, at that time, also football was very dominant. I mean, high school, not just high school, but even college. And the Dolphins too.
Yep.
They were all. It was a football town, and to have this little small public high school kind of be dominant as they were. Was very, shocking to a lot of people, to say the least. And then the national attention came, right, when they played, St. Anthony's, when they were on ESPN. So they were like, who's this little high school from, Little Havana, Miami, that's a public high school, you know, because that's another thing. It was a public high school that's being so dominant. And that, I think, you know, fueled the community to like rally, you know, behind the school, rally behind their players, their coaches. And again, I go back to, I think that the coaches just were authentic and genuine with the kids. So when you're authentic and genuine, I think everything else falls in place, and they just wanted to, you know, see the kids succeed. You know, obviously there's things you go through, you know, situations, you know, everything else. But I think, you know, when your intentions are pure and they just really wanted to see the kids, you know, get out per se, you know, people get jealous, people get envious, people hate, you know, and they have a problem with that because, you know, with success comes, you know, a couple haters here and there. So
yeah, I think that's very well said. And I do applaud the aspect of the storytelling, because all the players there talk about how much the coaches impacted them, and maybe not always love at first sight for some of the players, you know, reflecting, they realize, hey, they needed that level of hard coaching, especially I think in the Frank days, even probably more so. But then they realized how much that was important. Can you talk a little bit about, you know, that aspect and talking to some of those players and the love that they developed for Frank and Shaky specifically? Obviously UD in kind of the latter part of that situation, but just how instrumental were Shaky and Frank and in shaping what Miami Senior High was?
Yeah, no. So again, going back, I'll start with Shaky. You know, I mean, he had the Edwards brothers, you know, which if some people may or may not know. I mean, there were 3 sets of brothers, you know, Doug, Allen, and Steve. All went to Division I, you know, college, played Division I level. Obviously, Doug Edwards, who was the oldest brother in '89, was the #2 ranked player in the nation, only behind Kenny Anderson. You know, he was actually ahead of Shaquille O'Neal at one point, or finished. So the impact that those coaches had on these kids from the hood, you know, to start off, like Shaky from with Edward brothers was, you know, I mean, was, you can't match, you know.
Right.
He also had, you know, other players like PJ Brown. When I spoke to him, you know, they looked at him as a father figure, you know, like somebody they could go to. You know, like you said, moving on to the Frank era, you know, you have the guys who went to University of Florida, you know, like you know, Udonis and Brent. You know, they looked at him like the reason they were there and the reason they were able to be successful in life was because of Frank, you know, because of not being the, you know, tough love. It was all tough love. It was something that Frank, you know, pushed and always spoke about, but they became who they were, you know, and even guys like, you know, Steve Blake, who, you know, played for him 1 year, you know, they look back during their time in NBA and they're like, you know, if, you know, Frank was the guy that, you know, helped me realize, like, you can be here, but you gotta be here to be able to reach your next goal, your next, you know, endeavor. So I mean, countless stories of all the players just saying and giving thanks to Shaky and Frank and how they taught them, again, like, to go from being boys to men.
Yeah. One of the things that we've already kind of touched on, but is really interesting, because I think from your perspective, said you got to play against one of those teams, right? So in the moment, did you think they were cheating?
No, I mean, look, to be honest with you, everybody wanted to play for Miami High. I wanted to play for Miami High. I'm not gonna lie, I wanted to play, but I knew I couldn't play for Miami High because, I mean, their guy on the bench, you know, was like 6'4", you know, so it was not gonna be possible for me to play. But if you spoke to anybody at that time, I mean, who played, you know, hoops in South Florida, they wanted to play for Miami High. I mean, you know, Raja Bell, who's in the documentary as well, he played high school basketball here. He even said, he's like, you know, I wanted to play for Miami High. And, you know, Raja Bell became Raja Bell. Like, you know, I mean, he's one of the best defenders, you know, great, you know, NBA player that there was, you know. I mean, even Kobe Bryant spoke out one time about Raja and his, you know, his play and his defense and how, you know, how well disciplined he was, you know. And I mean, guys like that didn't even get to play for Miami High, but yet you see guys like that wanting to play for Miami High. So it wasn't a thing about, you know, cheating or that. I think it was more about, like, like in the documentary, Frank said, you know, do you send your kids or do you send someone to a place to fail? No, you want to send them to a place to succeed, you know, and Miami High was succeeding and everybody wanted to go there.
No, very well said. I can think back to my high school days and some of the prominent teams. And then again, that was the easy way out, right? Oh, they're cheating. They can't be that good. But as you're alluding to, no, good players wanted to go there because they built a legacy. You know what I mean? I think that was well displayed, I think, throughout the documentary as well, too. Last couple of ones. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I think it's like a culture thing, right?
Yeah.
You go to sports, like a real professional sports team, you know, I mean, you even the pros, like, okay, they want to go play for right now, let's say the Chiefs, right? Okay. Or the Patriots when Belichick and Brady were there. Just like the Heat. People want to come down to play for the Heat because of a culture. They win. They want to be there. So I think at that time it wasn't so prevalent or out in the open as it is now. And I think that's the problem. That was the issue.
Yeah. What is the one thing you want viewers to take away from watching the documentary? I know it's been out here a little while, but again, getting a nice another reboot, if you will, and feature at the Miami Film Festival. What do you want the city of Miami, more specifically, kind of take away from this film?
Well, first, you know, for the younger generation, you know, to kind of look back and see where basketball, I guess, in Miami first started. You know, I don't think Miami was anything before Miami High in 87, 88, 89, you know. So I think that's the first thing that I think I would like Miami to take away. The second thing I would like Miami to take away, or just the public in general, the audience in general, is like to always, you know, never judge a book by its cover. You know, I think that everybody, like you said, oh, they're cheating, they're doing this, they're doing that. And of course, it could be true, could be not true, whatever. But at the end of the day, again, it doesn't come from me saying this. It comes from the players. You know, they wanted to be there. You know, they wanted those guys to push them and teach them and guide them in life. You know, they're mentors to a lot of those guys. So I just want, you know, people to take away that there's a great story that once lived, you know, Miami High for that 10, 12 years was one, if not the best public high school in all of the United States. And it pumped out a lot of great individuals, you know, not just basketball players, you know. Some of them became doctors, some of them became lawyers, some of them became, you know, politicians, some of them became cops, some of them became teachers, just a whole slew of different things that, you know, people, like I said, people would look at the bad, but they never looked at the good at that time, you know, because there wasn't a way for the players like nowadays for everybody to tweet out or post and be like, well, that's their side of the story, this is my side of the story. And that, you know, it was dominated, you know, by, you know, the standard, you know, media, you know, newspaper, television.
I think that's extremely well said. And I think the point even that you made specifically about maybe some people went on to play D1 or wherever the case may be, but they went on to be good humans, good people, and, you know, and impact in the community. And that really is, I think, a lesson I think we can all love and learn from it from a lot of different ways. But high school experience, especially through sports, it gives you some semblance of discipline and kind of sets a foundation for you to become a better individual as well, too. So I think that's very well said. Do you have any plans, Jaime, in essence, to continue doing this thing? Again, obviously, you're in the media space, have a great job working with FIBA, been at ESPN, et cetera, et cetera. But did this kind of like whet your appetite here now for future filmmaking for Jaime Gutierrez?
Yeah, it did. It did. You know, I speak to the team once in a while about certain projects that I personally would like to do. You know, there's some conversations here and there that I've had with, you know, certain individuals. I do for sure want to keep in the sports space, you know, like kind of, especially in the basketball space, since I know it so well. But yeah, definitely wouldn't mind. I will say I will choose and pick what I would like to do, you know, like everybody knows. And like I've told everyone, this project, I mean, I did this project. It was a passion project. It wasn't like, oh, I'm going to submit it on, you know, film festival or put it on Netflix or Showtime. It really was just because I wanted to, you know, do something that for myself, you know, and then obviously little by little it started taking off and everybody wanted to be part of it and support. But yeah, there's a couple of other projects that I, you know, very interested in, and I hope to speak to those individuals soon so I could see if we can move forward.
Well, we can't wait. I think this was a great first entry and a lot of nice and positive critical acclaim coming from it. Can't wait to see how film goers receive it here at the 41st Annual Miami Film Festival. That's all the time we have for today. I want to thank you so much for joining us, everybody. Be sure to catch the Asylum at the Miami Film Festival. Make sure you follow the film festival at Miami Film. Follow my guy, Jaime, at JG Ball. Follow the film at the Asylum Film on Instagram. You can follow me at Shaw Sports NBA or Dope_interview. That'll do it here, man. Thanks so much for joining us. You know what it is. It's been a dope interview. He is Jaime Gutierrez. Make sure you check the Asylum and we're out.
Thank you. Appreciate it, man.
Peace.
Together we stand, divided we never. The vision is one, striving for the better. Working as a team, working toward a dream. It's not even work when the team is the dream. On a united front, we got our own back. A band of brothers to counteract any attack. One heart in fact, forget what the blood say. Dope is what flows in this fam's DNA. So let's do it for the love, give to the max. Listen to opinion, but react to facts. And remember that together with a but separate, just pieces of it. Dope is what flows in this fam's DNA. Dope is what flows in this fam's DNA.
Family represent like a tree with names on it. We're free, no chains on it. Relieved, the pain's gone, I can see. We come together like questions on the quiz. Mojo Flow and Viz, man, you know what it is. And if ignorance is bliss, you're gonna hate this lesson. Organized intellect like a tropical depression. My symbol is the cross, a mic and ghost peppers. Cause I'm just a black sheep, growing up to be a shepherd. Moonlighting as a weapon to protect the children. Every brother is a father, dynasties we're building. Max, J and K, Bebe and Isaiah, next level of the family foundation, understand me?